Everyone. My name is Jim Pikarski, and I teach meditation and give Dharma talks here in Venice, Florida at the Blue Lotus Meditation Center. Today I would like to talk about contemplating impermanence. Impermanence is a big feature in Buddhism and is very important. It's called one of the three marks of existence, along with suffering and selflessness. The mind is seen, it's like a craving, like a fire. When it burns something up, it moves on to the next thing. And this fire needs to be extinguished. What is that fire? This fire of craving. We think that we're going to get something that's going to satisfy us because we don't realize that everything is impermanent. We assume that we're going to get some lasting satisfaction from what we crave. And yet everything we crave, once we get it, at some point it disappears. It may disappear very quickly, or it may even last a lifetime, but it will disappear because we will die. So everything is impermanent, and it's really important for us to face this fact, because if we face this fact, we face reality. So contemplating impermanence helps us see through the delusion of thinking that things are going to last, and allows us to set ourselves free from this craving, hoping that we'll find something that will do it for us. There was a time in my life where I realized that nothing was going to do it for me, and this was very freeing, but it was like a revelation. All my life I was looking for something that was going to do it for me. Oh, if I get this, if I get this job, if I get this relationship, if I do this, if I do that, if I move here, if I move there, something is going to do it for me. And then I realized that nothing is going to do it for me. But this is basically how the understanding of impermanence works. It allows you to let go of these cravings for imaginary solutions. You know, the blooming of a flower is very delightful, very beautiful, but then it turns brown and starts rotting. And this is the nature of life. It's like it's full of change. And things come and go. Even the planets will die at some point. Even the sun will die. Understanding that things are impermanent can be almost a sense of loss because we're so used to clinging on to things. However, it can also help us bear pain in our lives. There's a common thing when people are in pain to say to themselves, "This too shall pass." This too shall pass helps us not feel like this pain is going to last forever. We know things are going to change. And because we know things are going to change, it helps us bear it more. It helps us bear it more because actually we're looking at reality. We're not telling ourselves a nice story. We're really seeing the truth of existence, that this too shall pass. So it's very important to be able to contemplate impermanence, to be able to understand it in our lives. And because we tend to take things as they're going to last forever, we need to go against that by contemplating impermanence. We need to kind of train our minds to be able to see life as it is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you to contemplate certain things about how you've changed. Now, you may just want to listen to this and not do the contemplations. You may want to contemplate for a certain amount of time. So after each one, I'll say you can pause now if you like. So the first contemplation is your body. How has your body changed over the course of your life? At one point, you were an infant, and now I'm 71 years old. So my body has changed tremendously. So just think about how your body has changed over the course of your life. And even though it's changed over the course of our lives, how we tend to see ourselves is the same. You may want to pause now and do that. The next one is how have your attitudes and ways of thinking changed over the course of your life? What attitudes did you have, and what kind of thinking did you have as a younger person? I remember my attitudes and my thinking as a child and as a teenager and as a young adult, and they're very different from what they are now. You may want to pause now and contemplate that. Also, think about your relationships and activities. How have they changed? What relationships did you consider important when you were younger? Certainly, as a teenager, a lot of times our peer relationships seem more important. And then, what activities? Well, when I was in college, I used to go out to the bars and drink a lot with my friends. That's something I don't do anymore, so my activities have changed a lot. You may want to contemplate this in your own life at this point. So remember what you used to find important that is no longer important anymore. Sometimes we had a toy or a device or something that was very important to us in our childhood, or something you needed from other people, a certain type of attention or something like that, and then you just grew out of it. So we have considered certain things important to us in our lives, and those things have changed over time. And it may be, and I almost guarantee it, that the things you find important now to you will also change. So take a moment to pause and think about those things that you've been considered important to you. Now think back on the things that you really wanted, that you got, and then they became not important anymore, or became a burden. Sometimes, there's a saying, be careful what you want, you might get it. And sometimes that's true for us. Sometimes it just was very important. I remember like buying a new car, and then 3 months later I'm driving it around all the time, and I hardly even notice it anymore. So we think things are going to really change our lives or remain very important to ourselves, and then it changes. So particularly when we get things. So you might want to pause and think about this for a moment. The Buddha gave 5 remembrances to be reflected upon. The first 4 have to do with impermanence. So what are these? First one is, I am sure to grow old. I cannot avoid aging. So again, you can pause now if you want to think about that for a moment. The second one is, I am sure to get sick. I cannot avoid illness. Again, you may want to pause and think about that for a moment. The third one is, I'm sure to die. I cannot avoid death. A lot of us don't want to contemplate our death, but it's going to happen. And so we can be much more realistic by facing this and at least understanding this and contemplating this. So you may want to pause for a moment and just contemplate what it means for you to die. The fourth one is, I must be parted from all that is dear and beloved to me. So when we die, when others die, we are parted from what is dear and beloved to us. We love our house could burn down, or it will leave us when we die. So everything that we hold dear and beloved will change. So you may want to contemplate this now for a moment. The fifth one is a contemplation, and it doesn't have as much to do with impermanence, but it's, I am the owner and heir to my actions. I will reap the rewards of my actions for better or worse. So this is basic contemplation of karma. And you can pause now if you'd like to contemplate that too. So the first 4 of these are about impermanence, and it's not to think about these things to get depressed. It's really about to think about these things so that we can free ourselves from clinging to false notions that certain things are going to last forever. For the purpose of overcoming youthful pride, a lot of times we have to understand that bad things are going to happen to our lives. A lot of times, and when we're young, we assume that we're just everything's going to be hunky-dory because we're in the prime of our life, and we don't really understand that things are going to change. For the purpose of making the most of your life, it's important while you have a sound mind to be able to do the work of freeing yourself from suffering. We have an opportunity, and our lives are short. And so it's important to understand the shortness of our lives and that it takes a lot to overcome suffering because we are so deeply conditioned. And if we do practice meditation, mindfulness, teachings, and really make a commitment to that, then we can make great headway in relieving our suffering. And the Buddhists believe that there are future lives, and this will benefit us throughout all our lives. So if we deeply contemplate all these things, we will come to a better understanding of impermanence and realize the futility of clinging to something that is truly ephemeral. Um, Instead, we develop those things that are lasting, uh, like qualities. Internal qualities are lasting, because internal qualities are not something that people can take away from you. So they're inherent in our true nature, such as compassion, wisdom, right action, right view, right intention, equanimity, peacefulness. All these things are part and parcel of who we are. So if we develop those traits, and by developing them, it's almost like getting in touch with them because they're already there. It's just that we have been following the mind's delusions and we've gotten out of contact with these things. So it's not just to realize that grasping onto things is futile. It's also to realize that we can put our time into something that is not futile, and that's developing ourselves spiritually. So developing ourselves spiritually is something that lasts. And things like contemplating death, they can sound morbid, but it can be used as a tool of awakening. You have an argument and you treat with someone badly. If you were to die before you saw them again, would you want to leave it that way? So sometimes contemplating death can motivate us to live a more responsible, caring life. And it can also help us appreciate the moments we do have, because we have certain moments in life and we never know exactly when we're going to die. So it's important to be able to cherish the moments we have. And we can contemplate time and change too, and just understanding that all things change through time. All life is fleeting. Time periods may vary for certain things. A flower can bloom in a day and be gone. A animal can live for years, and people can live for years. Everything has its seasons. So, and the most ephemeral is thought. Thought can change in a second. The earth can live for eons. So but everything changes, even though the time periods are different. On the level of physics, everything is changing in microseconds. Everything is changing. So if you look at the ions are moving, they're changing, everything is moving. Protons, neutrons, electrons, all those things, constantly in motion. You are not the same person you were when you're young. Your essence may be the same, but your essence of being an aware being, but everything else can be very different. So other ways to contemplate this is like just noticing your breath and how it is changing. Notice your heartbeat and how it's changing. Notice the sensations in your body. Notice any changes that occur. This can happen in meditation. So if you want to meditate, you can just look at your breath, your body, the sensations in your body, and just notice any changes that are occurring. So this can be a useful meditation. So this world of flux we're talking about is truly what scientists and physicists see on a atomic level. It's not, it is proven in science, basically. So even though the world is changing, we impose this static quality on it because we get lost in our thoughts, and thoughts are static. So we impose a static quality on things. We see ourselves as a static being, and we don't understand that we're an ever-changing being that is aware, and that even though there's this awareness, it's hard to put a finger on that, because as soon as we put it into thought, we make it into a static image. Um, so we impose a static quality on life, solid static quality. And this is not how life is. And because it's not how life is, when we impose this quality, we're not seeing life as it is, and we end up suffering from this. We end up experiencing the consequences of this. Even if you look at the table in front of you or some other object in front of you, it's just a bunch of atoms are moving around and staying in a pattern to give the illusion of something solid and stable. But it is an illusion. In relationships, we think we know the other person, and we relate to an image of them. And because we relate to an image of them, we may not see who the real person is right in front of us. The cause of most relationship problems are actually imposed because we impose this idea of who the other person should be or is. Can you remember when you imposed an idea on someone and it was proven wrong? I remember when I was young, I would see somebody maybe I hadn't seen in high school, and I thought of them a certain way, and then I met them again and I attended to them, actually saw who they were, and they were not like my idea of who I thought they were. My idea was a static and imperfect thing. It didn't really point directly to that person. So we impose a static idea on ourselves as like an unchanging entity, and we're imposing this onto something that's always changing. We are really a flow of experiencing. So thought can't really represent this because thought is kind of like a still from a video. We are a video, and to impose a still on it doesn't really give us a sense of who we actually are. You may see a still of a movie and its advertisement, and the movie could be very different than that still. So the pictures of ourselves that we have in our mind cannot represent us fully. So notice how you define yourself. Picture your body, and in this picture, is this actually yourself? Uh, so, the other thing about all our pictures, all our ideas of ourself is that all these things are changing. As a matter of fact, an idea of ourselves or a picture of ourselves is one of the most fleeting things possible. It's just difficult for us to hold an image of ourselves for very long. And it's impossible for us to hold a thought more than a few microseconds. We have to keep resurrecting the thought over and over again. So these thoughts are, a lot of times, will make or believe that that's who we are, this creation and thought. And yet this creation and thought is so ephemeral that grasping onto it makes us feel chaotic. It makes us feel anxious. It's like we're grasping onto something that's not there. We're looking for solidity and grasping onto the air, and nothing's there. So we're really trying to find some sense of permanence, and that's not the way life is. And even in ourselves, we try to find some sense of permanence. And so we get fixed ideas of ourselves. And when we feel anxious, we resurrect these ideas to kind of calm ourselves down. But because ideas are so ephemeral, a lot of times we'll choose other things. If I get a lot of money, or if I have a big house, or if I have something that indicates that is longer lasting than my thoughts, then I can identify with these things, and I can continue to have the illusion that I am something that is static and permanent through time. But I'm not. Nothing is. So although life is a constant flux, thought is static. You can't hold it through. All descriptions, even spiritual teachings, are static. They point to something, but you have to see the what it points to. And it's really pointing to this flow of experience. And this flow of experience is the reality. This is why we can never know life intellectually, because intellectually it's just static ideas. Teachings, although static, can point to life because they're actually pointing to something that's dynamic, that's in constant flux. Or teachings tell us where we are mistaken in our beliefs. So even this teaching about knowing how thoughts are static and how we impose that on ourselves can help us free ourselves from that delusion. So teachings can be helpful, but teachings themselves aren't really true or false, they're just helpful. So the thing is, even teachings, we must always base our understanding of teachings in our direct experience. So by contemplating impermanence, what we're doing is we're really coming to terms with life and how it actually is, and rather than the fantasies we have about it, the fantasies of permanence and the static qualities that only exist in thought. That's the only place that these things exist. They don't exist in reality. Reality is like a river, it's constantly flowing and constantly changing. And we can have a picture of a river, and in the picture, the river is still, and then we can imagine something flowing, but it's like, the thing is, the river actually is flowing, and the picture is always a poor representation of the actuality. So it's really important for us to drop these notions of ourselves and to really see who we are, what life is, and how it is always ever flowing. It is impermanent, ephemeral, and by doing this, we can experience freedom, freedom from our delusions and freedom from our mistaken notions about life. Thank you.